Thanks for joining us, Durs. I really appreciate you taking the time, brother.
It's my pleasure, man. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be on the show.
For sure, bro. Episode 2, baby. Let's get it.
Yes, sir.
So how's your Memorial Weekend going?
It's good, man. I mean, times are crazy right now. So I think our gathering is going to be limited to me and my 3 roommates hanging out on the porch, having some beers, soaking up some sun. That's all we can hope for.
Yeah, it's funny, like, a lot of people's lifestyles have been like completely changed, but as people who work in music, I know you're on the road a lot, so you're going to different, colleges and doing recording, and we'll get into that a little bit later, everybody, specifically about what he does. But, for me, like, it really hasn't been that, I mean, aside from going out on the weekends, it really hasn't been that bad. It's actually been kind of nice because I've had all this time to work on my personal stuff. Have you felt the same?
Yeah, man, it's funny when people ask me about how my lifestyle and kind of work style has changed. It's probably significantly less than the average person, So prior to all of this, about a third of my job was already working from home. So right. I'm kind of just zoned in on that part of my season or that season out of my work year, right. And that's all we've been doing for the last couple months. Which it's a grind, but I definitely miss those other parts of my job.
No doubt. Especially the live performance aspect of it, because I feel like that was the main reason why you got into it.
Yeah, man, it's there's something special about live music because it's just something that only can happen in that moment,
right.
And getting good recordings of those moments, those special moments, are so important, to everyone's career. So
it's like that. It's like that Ripcord concert that the video
I know
fucked up on. It was
we still talk about that show to this day.
I know that was like our best shit, and it was that's what we did, letting a student do it. But
oh my gosh.
But anyway, so you kind of touched on it a little bit about your job, but can you tell everybody about what your job is specifically and what you do for a living?
Absolutely. So I work for an a cappella production company called Liquid Fifth Productions. We specialize obviously in a cappella production, and that goes from coaching live performances, running sound for live shows, and then album production. So we do all of the album production from the recording all the way to mastering. And it's a lot of fun, man. There's such a variety of music that comes through our queue. We get to work with so many amazing people. And, and for a lot of these kids, it's one of the few professional music production experiences they're going to have in their whole life.
For sure.
And so it's awesome.
When we were working with Liquid Fifth, I was blown away when we first went to their studio. I was like, holy shit, this is a 6-figure studio, man.
I know. It's cool. It's a lot of fun, and all the people are so nice, and getting to see them in their element and showcase this this music that they've been working so hard on is always so special to see in both a recording scenario and in a live sound scenario. They're so proud of this product that we put together as together with us and with them. That it's a really great thing.
So for everybody, Liquid Fifth, as Durs said, is a cappella production recording company. We actually use them because me and Anders did Ripcord together, which is a collegiate a cappella group at Elon University. That's how we met. And that's how Durs got into working with Liquid Fifth, was through that connection that we had, with that established relationship already with that recording studio in our group. And so Liquid Fifth is based out in North Carolina. It's in Durham.
That's right.
But you're not in Durham, so you're in Northeast. So can you, I know you touched on all the things that Liquid Fifth does. Can you tell me a little bit more about specifically how you spend your time, how much of your job is doing the recordings, how much of it is going to live performances and doing, the live shows like that? And how are you recording everybody if you're, thousands and thousands of miles away from the studio, all that good stuff?
Yeah, man, those are all great questions. So I guess I'll start with kind of what we do. Can you actually run back a couple of those? Let me start from the beginning with those questions. I guess I'll start with how I got up here. I'll start geographically.
Okay, cool.
So when I graduated, so I had been interning for Liquid Fifth for a couple of years prior to graduation, and got to do a lot of shadowing, a lot of kind of on the side work with Chris, my boss, over those years.
And how did it came time internship, if you don't mind me asking?
Say that one more time.
How did you finesse that internship?
It started out with just asking. He was he was doing our shows by himself. And that's kind of the thing with a cappella shows, is because our main clients are college students, the majority of their funding is either coming from donations or from the universities. So they oftentimes will have pretty limited funding. So that means that we can't necessarily send as many people to do a live sound production as we would like. But so it's typically one person. So Chris has been doing this by himself for many, many years. And I remember, back freshman year, just wanted to learn more about what he was doing. I had just joined Ripcord. I was just figuring out that I wanted to learn about music production and, audio production. And, here was this guy that had all this experience. He was cool. He was nice. He was about to run sound for our show. And I was like, what a better opportunity, then just touch base with him, see if you can shadow him for a show or two. And that kind of blossomed into going on trips with him to record groups, going on trips for shows. I actually got to go to London a couple of times for a couple a cappella festivals. Just kind of built that relationship with him, especially because he was so close to Elon. So we were seeing a lot of him.
And you came to Elon with the intent of studying music.
I did.
Department. So, when you and Chris are kind of, y'all are birds of a feather, you know what I'm saying? I feel like y'all would hit it.
It's true.
You guys are very
It's true. It's funny. We joke about us kind of we would have connected so well had we not been we're exactly 10 years away from each other in age. Right. But had we been in college at the same time, or had we gotten to be high schoolers at the same time, we have so many of the same interests and the same loves when it comes to music production and a cappella even. So it was a match made in heaven. For sure. And for everybody out there, so in a cappella groups, you have a music director, and a music director is somebody who pretty much runs the show during practice. It's different from the president, who handles logistical things and whatnot. Their whole entire job is making sure we're musically on point. And I think from pretty much the get-go, it was known that you were eventually going to be our next music director once the current one graduated. And I think as in your position as music director, that only, made you work more and more closely with Liquid Fifth and develop that relationship even further. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And, it was something that I didn't know at the time. Obviously, I had this love of music and this newfound love of a cappella as a freshman. And, when I was a senior and we were looking for a new music director, it's oh, of course, those kinds of things are key qualities in a music director. But the thing about college a cappella is it's so quick. There's only 4 years for the most part that anybody is in a group, so every 4 years, the group is completely changing over and it's completely new people. So it's really a beautiful thing. And when you're looking for those qualities, it's yeah, that's the person that should be the music director. That makes so much sense. They've got this passion and this drive. Yeah. And at the time I had no idea that those were the things that they would be looking for.
You also need a certain temperament, especially in an all-male.
Yeah, of course.
Our fratty freaking wannabe frat star group, you gotta have some temperament to be
yeah, man. Well, you can only say so much about a group of, we were anywhere between 12 and 18 college males. Right. So, rehearsals can be a challenge.
But that's something that I really wanted to touch on during the podcast was how relationships can lead to opportunity, even in the beginning. Even when you're 18 years old and you're just getting started, learning, your degree, learning how to do music production, a relationship that you made before you even really learned how to produce music is what has created your career opportunity at this point. So it's important that at all times, no matter at what stage you are in your music career, that you're open and you're actively networking and you're actively maintaining and fostering relationships with people so that not only can they help you down the road, but you can help them, because you're helping Chris, Chris is helping you by providing you a job, but you're also helping Chris by, helping maintain the Northeast territory or whatever, helping make sure that Liquid Fifth's presence is still up in the Northeast. And, you're providing a lot of value to that. So it's a symbiotic relationship and a relationship that was developed, over the course of 6 years from when you were a teenager. So always be open to, maintaining, always be open to to becoming cool with people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. That was kind of one of the biggest things that I wanted to touch on myself too, because it has been so clear that has been one of the major impacts on my career and the things that I get to do. And it's about the people that you meet and the people that you work with, and you never know when a project is going to turn into a fruitful relationship. Like I can say that about you and I. I mean, we were friends in college, made music with Ripcord, and in college we never had any sort of production relationship. No. Like we didn't really do any of that in college. But after college, 2 years, 3 years later, you're making music. I love working on your music. We enjoy working together. So that's a relationship that could potentially bear fruit. And I think that applies to every aspect of the industry. You really never know. So if you can work with somebody, if you can interact with somebody, if you can meet somebody, always take those opportunities to meet and interact with those people, because they could lead to something in the future.
No doubt. And it's never been an issue for you, but always be a good dude or a good chick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, don't be a prick. That's something I've kind of had issues with, because I can be very direct at times, and that comes off kind of prickly at times. But like
prickly.
You and Chris are like two of the nicest dudes you'll ever meet. And so if you're treating everybody with, a mutual level of respect, and you're not burning any bridges, or you're not, shutting yourself off from people, or you're not treating people in a way that's going to alienate them, then you're going to have a much better time creating a group of people that want to support you and are going to want to look out for you, because they know that by doing so, it's going to, not just help you, but help them as well.
Absolutely.
So that's dope. So, we touched on that you came to Elon to work in music, but I'm assuming you didn't know that you wanted to work in a cappella. I mean, you've been working at Liquid Fifth since graduation. So what is that?
Almost 3 years, man. 3 years in August.
And then you interned there for 2 years, right?
For almost 4, man. It's crazy.
4. Yeah. So you've been there for a minute.
Yeah.
So did you see yourself getting into a cappella? Was it just because you really enjoyed the group that you said, okay, this would be an easy transition for me? Do you see your career in a cappella? Like, are the skill sets that you're learning in vocal production, is that why you're doing it? So you can get that skill set so that you can move on to bigger and better, or, not necessarily bigger and better, but different?
Yeah. So I didn't even know that I wanted to go into production until just before, like last second at the buzzer, was going to Elon because I discovered how awesome of a production program they had there. And I didn't even really know that that's what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to be in music. I knew I didn't really want to teach. And I didn't really want to perform. Like those two things, I didn't have the same passion for those two aspects of the music industry like I did just like getting down into the nitty gritty of it. Like I always enjoyed the music theory in school. I always enjoyed like the instrumentation, like all that stuff was so interesting to me. And so when I found music production, it was like, oh snap, this is what we were looking for.
Sure.
And I was a big chorus kid in high school too, and middle school. So, a cappella was the next logical step.
Right.
Actually, I don't know if you even know the story, but before I even came, I think I must have been like a sophomore in high school, maybe even a freshman. And I went to a camp. It was a music camp over the summer, and Spencer Clark went to the same camp because he was from Durham.
I feel like I've heard the story. I feel like I've heard.
Yeah, so we went to the same camp, and at that camp there was like a talent show, and he brought this arrangement of "Fix You" by Coldplay for a couple of the guys to sing. So we sang it, and it was a cappella, and it was like this was my first real introduction to like an a cappella song, because at the time he was a freshman, and they had recorded "It Girl."
Banger.
So this was right when it wasn't even done yet. I think it was just an edit, and he showed that track to me, and he was like, check this out. This is what college a cappella is. And I was like, I want to be in this group.
That first CJ riff that he starts in that song is unreal.
Yeah.
Like sets the vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
so that's kind of what like launched me into discovering and loving a cappella. But that combined with, the vocals that I always loved, I always loved singing from being a kid, so that was kind of the next logical step.
Sure.
And then from there, like, this job kind of was the perfect combination of those two things. It's production of all types, and it's all of the vocals I could ever want. It's almost more vocals than I could ever want.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. So do you see yourself like becoming like a vocal engineer? Is that because, you know, if you think about what a cappella is, it's entirely voices. So you're not working with any. I know you guys add some shit, like y'all add some shit.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm gonna plead the fifth on that one.
Y'all add some shit. Y'all add that, like. You know,
no, we do.
Stuff.
We do. I mean, it's just
the most part is voices.
It's mostly just, you know, we've had a lot of experience with different kinds of tracks, and you know, if we know that a chord is going to be a little bit more fun with another note added in it, then what's it going to hurt to just like record it while we're editing it and drop it in there? And it's funny because a lot of the time when we would get ripcord tracks back, I would know that Chris added notes in there. I would know. I would hear them and I'd be like, that was Chris. I knew it.
You remember that.
And now I'm the one doing that now. It's like it's a weird cycle.
You remember the hell I used to raise about that type of shit.
I know, and it was all valid. It was all valid, but it was just too fun. You know, the music is too. We love the music so much that we're willing to do anything. No, I'm just kidding.
For everybody listening who might not be. So sometimes they'll add stuff in recording sessions of acapella, and I was very anti them doing that, especially when it came to the beatboxing part. I was really touchy when like Chris would add like shit that I clearly couldn't do, you know. And I would throw a bit of a fit, but the song would always come out like incredible, and that's what you're paying for, you know what I mean? With Liquid Fifth, like it's taking what you can do and it's making the best out of what you're bringing to the table, you know?
Exactly.
You don't want to pay 10 racks for an album and then have it sound like, you know, you just recorded it in, you know, your Danley closet or whatever, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, man.
Or it's not edited by somebody who does it professionally. So, but that kind of brings me to my next question, which is, so before all this, you know, Corona shit started happening, because I know you're on the road a lot. So how much of your job would you say is doing live shows versus album recording? I know there's no office there or studio there. So for either one of those situations, you have to commute to the college to do that. And you have a pretty large radius of your territory. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. So I usually estimate that it's about a third of the year. So we're obviously the majority of our clients are college groups. Mm-hmm. So we're much more on the academic calendar than we are on just like the normal calendar, you know. It's a big semester by semester basis, and about a third of that time is spent on site doing recording with clients, with groups, mm-hmm. you know, wherever they're able to record. So sometimes that's a studio at the university, sometimes it's a classroom, sometimes it's a practice room, sometimes it's like an off-campus apartment, things like that. Like we just need a quiet space.
Are you bringing your equipment or?
Yeah, and I bring all the gear with me. So I've got a nice case that has everything in it that I can bring. And you know, we can even fly to on-site recording. The only thing that we can't bring is mic stands. So as long as somebody's able to provide mic stands, we can record anywhere.
So what equipment do you bring?
So I've got an Apogee Duet interface. A couple Audio Technica 4040s,
okay.
You know, headphone splitter, all the cables, some reflection filters to keep things isolated, headphones, the like, you know, that's pretty much all we need. You know, when we're just doing 2 voices at a time, you don't really need a whole lot of crazy stuff to get good quality recording. You know, you just need really flat, good quality microphones, and you know, you can do a cappella recording.
Sure. And does the recording process stay stagnant through each group? Like, does it stay the same through each group, or is it a different recording process for each group? Someone might want to lay the lead vocal first, somebody might want to lay the bass line first. How does that work exactly?
I would say that it really depends on the group, and it also depends on the time of year. So like a lot of the groups, if you know, it's hard to wrangle the schedules of, you know, 12 to 18 college students. That's crazy to do. So a lot of the times we like to get recording done on the weekends, but that's not always possible. So we can kind of do it during the week, which means that we're recording typically in a pretty sporadic fashion. You know, we might get to do a scratch solo first, but maybe not. You know, we like to get a scratch solo and then build it from the bottom up, you know, start with the basses and then do the baritones and kind of work our way up from there, to kind of start with this foundation. But that's not always possible due to scheduling. But we tend to record to MIDI, a skeleton of the song that they pull from their arrangement.
Okay.
So since we're using that to record to, we can kind of do it in whatever order we want, or are able to do because of the scheduling, which tends to be the biggest obstacle.
Yeah, for sure, as it does just in general.
Yeah.
But so you're not recording it to audio files; you're recording it to MIDI.
No, so we're recording into Pro Tools with audio files, but I'm recording to a MIDI file. So I can get a MIDI file that has a visual representation of their part. So we can kind of follow that and record to that, if that makes sense.
They have like arrangements?
Yeah, so they have to send it to us. They have to export it from their notation software themselves. But we have obviously done work with all sorts of notation software, so we can get a MIDI file exported from most to give us that skeleton to record to.
That's dope. So how dope have you gotten when it comes to mixing vocals? Like,
it's funny, man. I hate to toot my own horn, but I have loved every second of getting to do these vocals. We're just actually starting. Actually, we're probably about halfway through the vocals now. I live with a couple of guys who are in the Blue Light Bandits, a local band up here in Worcester, Mass. And we're recording their next album right here in our basement. And we're just getting through all the vocals now. So we've recorded all the drums and all the bass, and some keys and guitar, but we're kind of doing that simultaneously. And it's like I'm using some of these techniques that I've used in a cappella over the last couple of years that are kind of changing the game for this album.
On a more specific, like, technical question, what would you say like the biggest mistakes people make when it comes to mixing vocals are? Like,
that's a good question. I would say that man, the biggest thing is tuning. So if people either are tuning too hard or tuning too little, I kind of consider my role as a vocal editor to be finding that kind of middle ground sweet spot where you can't tell that it's tuned or edited at all, but you also can't hear anything wrong with it. You know what I mean? Like, that to me is that sweet spot that you need to find as a vocal engineer. Right. And when that comes to the reverb, that comes to the delay, that comes to the tuning itself, the timing, like finding the pocket, like all those things, you have to find that like magical sweet spot where it feels right, but you can't tell that anything has been done to it. Cool.
Can you give me some of your sauce? What are your like go-to plugins?
Man, I tell you what, because we do a lot of recording and editing, and I'm less on the mixing side, the plugins aren't as important for those parts of the process for acapella. But for my own personal enjoyment, lately I've been loving this Waves mastering like bundle that just has it's just a chain that has a bunch of stuff in it, and I'd have to open it up to tell you exactly what was going on in there, but between that and then just a sweet reverb, those two things just make it so clean, and compress it so beautifully, that's really mostly all that we need, at least in the first chunk of the process. I mean, I know that I did that in all of your stuff. It was just reverb, and then that mastering chain in Waves is just so smooth and so clean. And it's got a billion presets in it, so you can explore all the different types of sounds that it can make, and all the different pieces that it can have in it. I just had a ball looking through all those and figuring out what sounded good.
Waves is GOAT, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. So you've been working there professionally, like for real, full-time, 3 years, interned there for a minute. Like, what do you see this translating to? Like, do you see a career in acapella? Like, what do you hope to, what are your goals? Like, what are your career goals, ambitions?
Yeah, man, that's the $1 million question, right? Well, so ideally, gosh, like in a perfect world, I would love to be able to do a healthy amount of this while also getting to work on, both in the recording and in the post world, other instrumental music. Like I have a passion, or the same passion, for all the other types of music too, that I would love to continue to work on that. And that's kind of why this album has been such a blessing during this quarantine. We've gotten to really throw ourselves into this album production, and it was kind of a breath of fresh air from just a cappella, which is kind of what I was doing prior to it. Right. But I would love to be in a studio, man. I want to have my own studio one day. I want to make music with people that I love spending time with, and make music that I love listening to. which maybe is the cop out, like boring answer, but that's the goal, you know, that's the dream.
Honestly, man, like it's important to have, I think it's important to have like really lofty goals and set super high bars for yourself. But at the end of the day, like if I'm making a living off of making music every day, that's the goal. You know what I mean?
I can't complain.
That's that, and hopefully once I get to that point, then I'll have another, hopefully attainable goal that I want to, realistically achieve. But like for me, that's my career goal right now, is just I want to figure out a way to make enough money, whether it is getting like sponsored posts on Instagram, whether it is, just having, a podcast, a vlog, selling beats online, or selling beats to artists directly, like 4, 5, 6 different ways of making, just small amounts of income, but add it all together, it could be pretty significant. So, I wasn't expecting you to be like, oh, I want to, be the engineer for Ariana Grande or some shit.
I mean, that would be sweet. I mean, there's plenty of artists of that caliber that I just would like, that just have amazing voices, and it's funny that I've found myself, because I've spent so much time, working on, listening to, recording, editing vocals. It's all vocals in my life. Yeah. And I'm super grateful for that. But it's like, I find myself like lusting after some of these famous voices, that I would love to just see in Melodyne or see in Pro Tools, and just to get my hands on them and see like what makes them so good. Mm-hmm. Like, why are they as good as they are? Those are the things that, I get excited about.
It's funny because there's a lot of fucking good singers in collegiate acapella. Like,
it's surprising.
Good singers. Like, I was really, like, when I first got to Elon, I had no idea. This was 2012. So, like, acapella, like, Pitch Perfect hadn't really happened.
Yeah.
Like, so
that was early.
Know too much about it. Like, I did an acapella group in high school, but it was like a joke. You know what I mean? It was like a couple guys, we got together after lunch, like, once a week. You know what I mean?
A lot of people did.
But, like, I remember, like, showing up to the first ripcord rehearsal and being like, holy shit, like, wow, there's some people who can fucking sing. And like, when I was a freshman, we had some damn good vocalists in our group.
It's true.
So I was a little spoiled between Bert, Tyler Johnson, CJ, even Dave Herman. He had a great voice. Murph, I mean,
so many.
Damn, like, we had some fucking hella good singers. But anyway, so I wanted to ask you, like, I always like to ask people, like, tips and tricks, like, any advice you got for people. I know we touched on the relationship thing, but I know it's a little bit of a niche market, the acapella thing, but like I said, like, I feel like a lot of people, and the whole point of this podcast is to dispel the notion that if you get into music, you either have to make it, like, become a mainstream engineer and make millions of dollars, or you're a failure. And I feel like that's like a big barrier of entry for a lot of people. Like, a lot of people don't want to get into music because they feel like it's unrealistic that they're going to become the next Drake, and they feel like if that doesn't happen, then they become a failure. And it's like, nah, you can make a living in music. You can make a living doing what you love, what fulfills you, what you get enjoyment out of, and you can just do it to a lesser degree. And it's never been easier on the internet, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
20 with the internet. And like my first episode with Clanton, we talked about Fiverr. Clanton makes a living off of Fiverr, which is insane.
That's awesome. And
he lives in Los Angeles, and he makes a living off of Fiverr alone, which is like, I've never heard of anybody doing that in music. So so like, what tips do you have? Like, what advice do you have? Like, anything along those lines to give out to our listeners?
Yeah, totally, man. I mean, I would say that like the relationships thing is probably my biggest, but after that, it's just like, don't be afraid to just keep making music, surround yourself with people that have the same passion for music that you do, and people are out there, and like you were saying, like it's never been easier to find people with the internet and social media, like everybody's doing it, and especially because everybody's home now. Like, buy Ableton, mess around in it, get Logic, mess around with it, record yourself, buy a mic, like, just try those things, because you never know what you're going to be good at or what you're going to love doing until you do it. Like, I didn't know that I liked music production until college, and now it's everything that I do.
Right.
Like, you just never know. So take the time to invest in yourself, and spend the time doing what you enjoy doing. And those people who also enjoy it, like you're going to make magic no matter what, as long as you're following that passion, you know?
Yeah. Some of the most like fulfilling moments that I've had have been in the studio, or when I'm working on some creative shit with like a homie, and we connect and we hit it. You know what I mean?
It might be 2 a.m, but you happen upon that melody that leads to a song that becomes a banger. You know what I mean? Like, it could be anything.
For sure.
And you just always have to be ready to soak it in when it comes.
Word. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, because this was something I focused on with Clanton, and it's something that I'm focusing on in my current lifestyle right now, but it's different because I have a job, but I'm also working on my personal shit, and I'm trying to generate money on like a personal side. So I have like a side hustle job that, you know, keeps me busy during the day for the most part. But then I have my, and that's not a job in music, unfortunately. And then I have my music on the side. You and Clanton have your jobs, but your job is music. And then on the side, you have your own personal aspirations with music. So can you talk to me a little bit about how you separate the two? If you have a long day at work and you've been working with vocals all day, and then you have a song that you're working on personally, and you have to mix vocals, how do you overcome that? Like, how does that... Yeah, how do you deal with that? Because me, I feel like it's kind of not, it's not the, as much as I would like it to be in music, it almost benefits me because it's a part-time job, so it's not eating up all my time, but it gives me like my brain that balance where a few days a week I have like something that's not creative at all. It's just like very like numbers above the shoulders type shit. And then I come back and I feel ready to be creative. But if you have a job that is creative, how are you able to balance the two?
That's a great question. I think that's something that a lot of music producers probably battle with, you know, and obviously the goal, the ideal situation would be to be working in music enough, or working on the music that I love enough that I don't even have to do it on the side. Like that all of the things that I love to do can be my job. But obviously that's a difficult goal to attain. And, you know, we don't always have the path that leads us to that early on. You know, it takes people their whole career to get to that point sometimes. I would. It's difficult, man. Like it's difficult, especially during quarantine. You know, like typically between the months of March and May, which we are just finishing up, I spend those 2 months, 3 months doing all recording and all live sound. And this year it was all editing. So I was working from home pretty much from November, like the end of November, beginning of December, through the holidays, all the way until now. You know, and that's not typically what we do. So usually I get a break from the editing side of things, and I don't mind editing personal stuff when I'm doing live sound as my primary job focus, because those are just two totally different things. Or if I'm recording versus editing, you know, like those, I can typically separate the, you know, whichever part of my job I'm doing in that season. I don't have an issue with doing similar stuff on the side.
Right. Okay, cool. And so what are you like, I know you were talking about the Blue Light Bandits project that you got going on. Can you tell me a little bit about some of the other things that you do on the personal side, whether it is your own music? I don't know if you're still making music on your end, or if you're still just doing like freelance stuff on the side, or, you know, what is that other side like for you right now?
The vast majority of it has been freelance stuff these days. You know, I used to do some arranging, you know, for a cappella groups, which I still do every once in a while. I'll do like some transcription for people. Like I actually had a client that, a personal client who had written some songs that were going to be used in like commercials and like church events and stuff like that she just didn't have sheet music for. So she would send me a recording of her singing it, and then I would transcribe it into notation software so that she could give out that sheet music. You know, so things like that, you know, editing of vocals. Obviously I've done some mixing for you, some for Garcian, another friend of ours, you know, stuff like that. So I'll do freelance mixing, freelance editing. This album with the Blue Light Bandits has been taking up a lot of our time in the most beautiful way. And then in addition to that, you know, what little we can do, or what little live sound that we can do, we've been doing a couple streams, both from our basement and from on-site locations. We did one this past weekend at one of our favorite restaurants out here in Worcester. You know, with things being so crazy and different, we're just trying to get as much out of it as we can. And yeah.
Cool. So, I want to talk a little bit more about the freelance stuff.
Sure.
So how much time would you say you commit to promoting that? Who are you really working with? Or is it mostly just friends like you, me, Garcia, like people who you know who work in music, who know and trust your skill set? Are you promoting yourself on any social medias? Like, are you on Fiverr? Are you doing anything like that for freelance stuff? Or is it all just word of mouth?
It's pretty much only word of mouth right now. I imagine that if I did, because this Blue Light Bandits project is so large right now that I don't really have a need for a lot of other projects, a lot of other smaller projects. For the most part, it's been friends and, you know, people that I already have worked with in some capacity in the past. You know, I don't really do any sort of promotional things online or anything like that. It's been mostly word of mouth, just kind of people that I've worked with already. Yeah,
for sure. Are you doing this album Por Gratis?
You know, I don't expect any payment because they're my closest friends and it's music that I love. Right. But, you know, they're genuine, nice, kind people and they force us to take, you know, a little bit here and there throughout the process. Right. You know,
you don't want to get.
But it's, you know, it's something that we love so much. It's like I don't even need to get paid for that kind of work because it's just it's such good music and it's something that I'm so passionate about that I don't expect it. And, you know, when it does come through, you know, the form of donations and things like that we get, it's like, yeah, okay, I guess I can, you know.
You know, it's funny. Garcian hit me up to buy a beat for me the other day, and he was like,
"That's awesome."
I was like, "Dude, I'll give it to you for free." And he was like, "Well, I want it exclusive, so like I would want you to take it down and all this stuff." And I was like, "All right, well, I don't know if I want to do it for free for that, but like, I was willing to give it to him for free." You know what I'm saying? So we did it like $50 or something just for the exclusive or whatever. So like,
exactly.
You know,
little stuff like that comes back around too, you know, like working with, you know, I've worked with him and he's a great guy and a great artist and I've enjoyed working on his music a lot. And it's like, if we can establish kind of a, you know, if it's a mutually beneficial relationship early on when, you know, there's not a whole lot of stakes, like that can lead to a much more fruitful relationship in the future, you know, say one of his songs pops off, you know, because you never know, that could happen at any point on any song. It just could be the luck of the situation. So, you know, that could be a beneficial situation for both of us that I wouldn't have found myself in unless I had, you know, offered to do something for him or, you know, offered to start creating a relationship where we can make music together.
No doubt. You know, it's funny. Well, for me right now, it's all about growing with your peers. You know what I'm saying? People are in this trying to overreach and overshoot. Like, oh, if I can work with this artist, I'll make it. It's like, fuck yourself. The reason why this artist got to the point where it's at is because they found somebody and they grew together. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
But, and also, bro, I have to tell you, that beat Garcian hit me up for, first beat I ever sold.
Hell yeah.
Happened.
That's awesome, dude. Congratulations.
Let's get it.
You got to start somewhere. It's got to start at some point. And once it does, you don't have to start again.
It's the first beat I've ever sold. So, like, that's a vibe. You know?
That's awesome, man. Congrats on that.
But anyway, you were saying that you don't really focus too much on promoting yourself online for the freelance stuff, and I'm sure it's because you're super busy with Liquid Fifth and your own and with Blue Light Bandit stuff. But is that something you see yourself doing down the line? Because that's something I'm considering doing now. Like, even like Clan's got me inspired, bro. Like, I know how to mix a vocal, like a basic. Like, I won't charge the same as Clan, but I'll charge you, you know, $25. I'll mix your rough take or whatever. You know what I mean? Because I can do that. So, like, it's got me a little inspired to try to be more proactive about, you know, doing little side hustle gigs like that. So, is that something that you plan on doing once things kind of
definitely
the project?
Definitely. You know, it's always something that we can do in our spare time. You know, and I think that right now, because of a lot of my time is already just filled with these projects that I don't feel the need to yet, but absolutely in the future, you know, like this is something that I want to be doing for the rest of my life. Like I want to be doing vocal production and vocal editing and you know, all that stuff forever. So eventually I am going to have to, you know, do my own sort of marketing, but it'll be for vocal production, you know, for the recording process, you know, the editing process, the mixing process, like pretty much everything vocals related is kind of where I'm putting all my seeds in that basket right now. And it seems to be what I'm good at. So I'm going to try and stick that out for as long as I can.
Word. Well, dude, this has been a great conversation, man. I appreciate you coming on. I think there's a lot to learn from like everybody's situation. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
And like I was saying before, like just because you don't you haven't quote unquote made it doesn't mean you're not making it or you're not figuring it out. And in everybody's situation, there's gems and there's knowledge like this. So, you know, I want to make sure that everybody, you know, hears different perspectives of people who are working in music who are fucking figuring it out, because it's never been easier to make a living in music with the internet these days.
Absolutely. And I'll say one other thing. A really close friend of mine said that there are tons and tons of music jobs out there. You just have to know where to look for them.
Right.
You know, and that really got me thinking. It's like, wow, you know, so many other industries outside of like the music industry include music in some form,
sure.
You know, whether that's an advertisement having a song, or a company having a jingle,
yep.
or, you know, a company like Facebook having music in their ads, or like in, you know, on their platform, you know, like so many different companies. Movies have music, shows have music, video games have music, so many apps have music. It's like so many different platforms and industries need music people, that if you can figure out a way to become marketable in that fashion, then, you know, then you're invaluable to so many different types of companies and industries, you know. Sure. Like the stuff that we do for a cappella vocal editing can translate to so many different industries that, you know, I'm finding that it's a skill that's transferable to a lot of different things. So you just really got to know where to look, and there are always people out there who are willing to help you look for that, you know.
No doubt, especially with like, well, first off, to your point, music and entertainment are tied together. Like music is entertainment, but music goes with all sorts of entertainment. Like
absolutely
goes with everything, and entertainment's never been more readily available. Simply. So that goes to your point. But yeah, bro, I appreciate you joining the podcast, bro. This was a great conversation. I appreciate you dealing with me, like interviewing you for like.
No, thanks for having me, man. It's a pleasure. It's actually my first podcast I've been on. So
yeah, bro, it's my second one I've ever done. So
hell yeah. So it's figuring it out.
We're figuring
in quarantine.
In quarantine. This is the Figuring It Out podcast. We'll be back. Thank you, Durs, for coming. This was lit.
Thanks for having me, man. It's been an honor.
Dope.